In today's session, we're going to be discussing is what to kill before you add. One of the increased concerns in the industry right now is the fact that we keep accumulating a lot of information. So we have 900 pipelines, 300 dashboards, 60 plus sources of our data. And all of them coming because somebody asked for it, and we're collecting it all and we're using it. But what actually happened is that at some point, someone asked for a dashboard and we created this dashboard. And then behind it, we created some pipelines to be able to accompany it. So it's going to be having the right and correct data. And at some point, this person find that the data is no longer fitting. This is a situation I saw many, many times. I build a dashboard. In the first 2 weeks, it's the honeymoon. Everybody's super happy. We have data. We can use it. The dashboard is working and it's all great. And then it's starting to create a drift in some way. If it's trust issues that all of a sudden the people who's using it start questioning the quality of the products that they receive and what they actually worth. It is with the fitting, because what they asked 2 weeks ago is no longer fitting for what they need to do today. And the cost of it is just accumulating. So then we build another dashboard to answer their needs. But what actually happened in the background is that taking the data that we gave them, the stakeholders, they building shadow dashboards at the backend using Excel. They're downloading CSV files. They then accumulating different data sources into a proper dashboard. They can actually make decision, which means that whatever was built for them, the dashboard was not fitting for the reality of the decisions they need to make. And this is where the dissonance is starting to happen. The data stopped arriving because the sources were not fully integrated as they're supposed to, because it's requiring a lot of manual work, because things have changed and the data is not available anymore. And people still need the data to be able to make this decision. This is where we're starting to see a bigger and bigger raft in the data. The idea behind it is that what we want to do is to actually kill two systems that being built in place. The budget was for the dashboard, for building the dashboard, creating the dashboard. But what actually happened was somebody decided that the data is not anymore fitting and needed to build something on top of it. The cost of it is just increasing because it means now that we're paying for double. At some point, the manager realizing that they're doing extra work with the data. So their solution is to hire an analyst. And then the analyst arrives and he's taking over this dashboard and start working with them. This is when the silos starting to happen, because now marketing have their own analyst and product have their own analyst, and each of them building more and more dashboards. So the 300 dashboards that we have today will double or triple by the time it's going to be finished, because we need to fit all the needs. And while the solution seems to be easy, it's actually the wrong solution. We're paying on it quite a lot in the long term. The fact that we have a capacity, for example, our visualization tool can support this amount of dashboard. It can support 1,000. It can support, I don't know, 5,000, 7,000 does not mean that we actually need to use it. Capacity is not necessarily the mean that you have a permission to create more content with your data. And when we're talking about this part here, a lot of the things that happen is that most teams starting to increase their stack from the tools perspective to be able to accumulate and answer all of the needs that happening in the different departments. So business basically come with more and more needs. The increase of dashboards from the 300 now become 1,000. They need to scale up the processing engine that they are using to actually build up all these tables and all the data into something that is useful. They need to start cracking down the visualization tool and upgrade it to something that supports this, and the cost just accumulating. And when the cost accumulating, it means that we're also paying again on a lot of noise and not enough on value. Because when somebody going to come and ask, what is the value of all of these 1,000 dashboards that we have? It will be very, very hard to actually come and explain it and name the value of why do we have it. And when we're talking about the capacity of these tools, this is one specific thing. And the people that are being hired to actually answer the growth are actually doing a lot of double work. If you're looking at the data team, what happened for them now is that they need to support the existing data and pipelines that we have. At the same time, they need to start supporting different departments and their needs. So what happened is that instead of having the time for innovation, they moving into a reactive mode. They're starting to protect themselves more and more because most of the time they need to answer an incident, a support, a migration, a cracking of data because now we have a lot of it in different places and things are not always working as they should. And the data from having the ability to actually create new things, from being proactive about this operation, becoming reactive. The next migration that's going to come for any of the tooling will be because the demands has increased and now the data team cannot anymore hide it. These little jokes that people are telling is like, yeah, I can go and have a coffee break until the dashboard is loading is something that everybody knows about, but nobody actually knows how to deal with it. So we keep basically accumulating more and more data there, which causing things to become much slower, much heavier, asking Excel sheets as dashboards rather than actually focusing on other things. Every product team has this mechanism, what we kill, what we observe, what we keep. The idea behind it is to understand from all of the products that the data team have, what are we killing? What are we removing? What is not delivering any value? It's not about archiving and it's not about keeping it in a secret compartment or private compartment. It's literally killing it because what it's causing is an increased work on the data team and also on everybody else who's using these dashboards. And that's creating more cost for the business to get a decision they need instead of actually making it. We should think about how we're killing it. The observe one in this mechanism is every data set that is causing high support, high incidents, but we are not sure if it's just something that happened now because of seasonality or if it's something that we actually need to be worried about and then put it into a candidate of a kill. The mechanism here is actually flipping the accumulation system that exists in today. Instead of having 1,000 dashboards, we're going to have 40 dashboards or we're going to have 10 dashboards that we're going to use and going to be able to leverage them to the best of making decisions in an automated way. Because what we actually want to do is to free the business to do the job that they were hired for, rather than letting the business run and work with data, trying to actually get the decisions that they need to make. So in the observed situation, the data right now shows us that these products are causing supports, causing incidents, but it's not clearly if they're already costing too much for the business and for the data team in cognitive load. And then the third one is the keep. This is the keepers, dashboards, pipelines, or data sources, even agents in the age of AI that we want to keep and we need to keep. So they have a clear value. We know that if we're going to shut them down, they're going to cause an issue. And at the same time, they're not causing much of support and incidents. Because the idea behind it is that we're trying to actually look at our portfolio and optimize it. The same thing as any product team going to do with a feature. When they're introducing a feature, they're releasing it for a small quantity of people. They observe it. They're realizing what is working and what not. And then they're expanding it slowly to more and more users. While in the data team, this never happens. We never arrive to this moment where we're stopping and we're actually evaluating what data we supply, so what products, which one of them actually answering the needs of the business and not causing any bad data zombie taxes. So no shadow work that is out of control, that is not forcing the business to work extra hours to get a decision they need. Because the goal of the data team is actually to simplify the life of the business teams. So how do we actually making this decision to what we kill, what we observe, and what we keep? Here you can see a little framework that I have created. The idea behind it is this decision isn't feeling, it's a pattern. And I will want to emphasize it because the idea behind entire impact operation is that we are supporting decisions based on numbers. So whenever it's coming to data, how often does it break? Be able to quantify it. We need to understand what is the support tickets that we receive, how many incidents were created, what the users are using it, and how well they finding it fitting for them. It's their satisfaction. It's part of the adaptation. If we see a drop in, all of these factors need to go into the decision. So if we see a product in a life cycle that is just now growing and is still having a lot of incidents and support because it's the beginning of the product, the first quarter, it should be fine to keep it inside the observe. We don't touch it. If in the second quarter, it's still In the observe, it means that something is not working as we expected it to work, and then we need to move it into kill. And when I'm saying kill, we can think about basically in the second quarter how we balancing this product, either by rebuilding it or rebalancing it and trying to fix it. And if we cannot do that in the second quarter, it needs to go into a kill. There is no other option. When we're talking about key products, this is the products that we never delete. The idea behind them is core value products for the organization. They are used for making decisions. We know that they're not causing a lot of issues. They're maintained quite heavily. Without them, the organization will go blind. Honestly, if I see organization that I'm working with, maybe 10% of the dashboards that are actually can be core, and I can even name the number. In some cases, it's between 5 to 10 dashboards. In extreme cases, it was 40 dashboards, because what happened is that over time, we keep building new data sources. We keep building new tables. We keep creating more dashboards. And each of them is basically creating a new fork from the data, and it's creating heavier and heavier environment for all of us to maintain. The keep ones are the core, they're the cleanest ones. So for example, they're using pure tables that are structured correctly, and we know that they're not causing much of support and much of incidents unless something breaks. And as we know, data is a non-linear one, so data will always break. When it's coming to the kill, this is the most heavy decision that needs to be made. There is the identification based on high cognitive load. So how much actually they causing the data team and everybody around it to deal with it? It's by the incidents and by the amount of support. So if we see that their share is quite high in the support request, we need to think about how we're killing it and sunsetting it, because it doesn't create value. It's actually creating a lot of noise. If the value math fails, this is the second component here. Here, it's basically the cost damage, but it's not only the cost of it versus the value. So it's also the understanding of, if we're paying on this 1,000 euros, but the return is only 200, and we don't, or we cannot actually identify the real value this data gives, then it should go into kill, because it means that we're spending quite a lot of money on something that is causing us to lose money. Now, in the infrastructure view, it always will look like we are not paying a lot, like it's quite cheap, because infrastructure, okay, dashboard going to cost 50 euros or 100 euros, and we say, that's per year, 50 or 100 euros per year. And we're looking at it and we're saying that's not a big cost, so we can still leave it. But the reality is that the cost that actually being produced by it, it's the support tickets that people opening on it. It is the incidents. It's all the shadow work that happens in the back, where the business trying to leverage this data into something else, which means that they need to transform it from the existing structure into a new one. And this costs money, because the people investing hours into it instead of doing the work that they're supposed to. And then the third one is, as I mentioned before, is the second time in observe. If an product arrives to the second time into observe, it means that we didn't manage to balance it into a keep, meaning the costs are still high, meaning support, incidents are still there. The value for the user or user satisfaction is not high enough for us to leave it. It means that it needs to be killed. This mechanism or this framework is actually changing the conversation, or flipping it from we need to keep it all into what we keep and everything else goes either observe or kill. The decision is not an easy one. This needs to be made by the CEO who owns the portfolio. This is not something that we just throwing around and hoping something good going to happen. The decision needs to be supported by management who owns the process. It's sitting usually with the C-level. The idea behind it, that this decision is not a political one, is not emotion one, it's backed by numbers. The data team job is to actually observe and collect all of the data available about the data products that they have. Dashboards, pipelines, data sources, agents in this case, because now everybody talks about agents, and understand each of them, what they're creating, what is the amount of support, what is the amount of incidents, and slowly accumulate it into a table that quantifying it into cost. Meaning the data team has invested X amount of hours on support tickets for product Y, which means it's 30% of the total support time that was invested went to this item. When we have these numbers, we can go actually then once a quarter to the executives. And here, this is really the CFO and the CEO, I think, are in the core of this process. They are the main drivers of it and present the numbers. And based on it, make the decision. This is what we kill. This is what we keep. This is what we observe. The recommendation is of the data team. The last word is coming from the CEO and the CFO as a decision that was made. We don't leave the data team alone. Management to have the full overview over the organization and can actually push it forward. And reactive isn't the mode. Most of the data team work is reactive. Why it's happening? Because of the amount of data that we're accumulating, because of the amount of data that we're collecting, the data team is unable to actually become more innovative as we want them to be. Because what happens is that they're constantly being driven from different sources who comes in and asking them for different requests for support, for incidents that happens, and then the innovation is getting damaged. This questioning, where did go the OKR and why we didn't finish it? Or where is the data strategy initiatives that we set up at the beginning of the year? Why then none of them has finished? This is exactly the reason. The team is in a reactive mode, and this is not only the cost that you see in the infrastructure, and it's the cost of the incident, it's the cost of the ad hoc request. It's basically the business extra work to get the data. And on top of everything, it's also the effort that the data team needs to put to maintain all of these services in a running way. And the one cause it's happening is because nobody taught the data team to say no. The enablement mode that we set them is actually what causing this big issue, because they need to support the marketing department and they need to support the product. And if not, it's going to be escalated and then there's going to be alignment on what is important. We always need to think about what is the capability vision, how the work of the data team is actually pushing it forward, and what holding the data team back from actually moving forward. This is part of the quarterly review of understanding what was done, what was blocking, and how we're moving forward, and make the decision on what we kill and what we observe for the next quarter to be able to actually free the capacity of the data team. Killing it once doesn't stop it. And this is the reality of everything that we do. One of my biggest learning was that whenever we were killing dashboards, somehow they came back from the back door as an ad hoc request. And then all of a sudden, the data team had an increase or inflation of ad hoc requests for data, which all were mimicking basically the data that was lost. This is not the time to panic. The idea behind it now is to figure out why it happens and what drives it. So what is the data that actually is being used to make decisions, and what decisions are being made based on the data that we just killed? And based on it, we can decide if we want to prioritize a solution. Because if it's actually driving a value, for example, one of the cases that I had a few months ago was with a product team. We shut down their dashboard that was collecting data from several sources of research SEO toolings. And what we try to do is to keep the pages indexed quite high so the organic traffic will continue. And when we shut down this dashboard, they actually started to bring more and more ad hoc requests to compare it, and then made more shadow work on their side, building CSV files, accumulating these sources. When we investigated at the beginning, before we killed it, there was no correlation or clear correlation between this activity to the marketing SEO activity that they're doing. And so we left only the dashboard from the marketing SEO, which made more sense and had higher value for everybody who used it, even for the product team. What we actually discovered was that they didn't need the sources of the data that they were collecting. They didn't really need the dashboard that they had, because both of them didn't answer their needs. They had a very specific need for each page that they were reviewing to be able to actually get an SEO report on it, which was not supported, that they were importing inside. We need to build something else that will answer and simplify the time to decision that they have, rather than the solution of it was we kill it because the product before didn't show up any value. It was with high incident ratio because of the amount of sources or external sources that were coming. And each small change there was actually breaking things and causing it to crack. And instead of it, we moved it into one streamed line together with the marketing department. So we also simplified everybody's work now by having one true source of data rather than different sources, and then having a debate which source is correct or not. It's basically a question that we constantly need to ask whenever we're adding something new, whenever we're adding a new source, whenever we're adding a new product. The main question that we need to do, what are we freeing in the existing demand? So the existing product that we're offering to make space for the new product. This is a state of mind. And this is also a way that a lot of us working on a day to day, we have limited time, limited hours, and we know that we cannot fit and do everything at the same time. So it's important that we're going to split it around and make sure that things are running as expected. Thank you for joining this live session to the people who joined. The recording will be available on impactoperation.substack.com. Of course, you can learn more about the method at liorbarak.com, and my upcoming book, What Data Really Costs, covers a lot of these aspects as a fabled story, and I will see you around very soon.